Hello, and welcome to Covert Castaway. I'm Holly.
Je suis Stéphane.
Join us as we share what we learn and how we're making the transition to liveaboard cruising.
Hello from sunny Lisbon, Portugal.
And hot.
And it's hot. And I say sunny because is it unusually bright here? It seems like it's really bright. Like the sun is really amazing. I don't know what it is, close to the ocean or something like that.
Probably.
Anyway, we are so excited to share with you a bunch of stuff on today's podcast. Before leaving for Portugal to meet my family here, and we're kind of traveling and sightseeing, we spent 9 days in La Grande Motte, taking advantage of a lot of the training courses that are offered through Outremer Week. And we wanted to talk about a lot of the training. I mean, I was so tired after that week, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, for me, it was 9 days in a row of classroom.
Yeah, that was a lot. And I did a lot of sailing. So what we're going to cover today are things like some of the classes we took on the boat. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Diesel, electronics, celestial navigation, electrical systems, weather, things like that. So there's a lot packed into this podcast on training versus doing individual podcasts on each topic. We thought we would sum it all up because we took it all at one time, basically. The only thing we didn't take was medical, right? And
there are a couple other training classes that offshore safety or something. There are a couple other training classes that we will need to take in the subsequent.
But the big picture is that we're so excited to be doing this with Outremer. In our past experience buying a boat, they sort of threw us the keys and sail away and
and don't
come back. Yeah. And this has been completely different, and we think that's really exciting to share, and want to kind of talk about all the different things we've been able to take advantage of with Outremer going through these courses.
Yeah. I mean, it seems so normal, and then we had to take a step back, say, wait, we had a whole different experience the first time around.
Yeah.
And now it sounds, as you go through it, it just makes sense that you're just not sailing a boat, but you're sailing a whole experience.
Yeah.
And making sure you are as ready as possible when you get the keys.
Yeah. And I think that's their philosophy, just to kind of cover that real quick, is, they seem to, they're certainly selling boats, like that's what they do, right? But what they seem to care about is making sure your project, they call it these projects when people buy boats and plan their travel and their sailing, they want to make sure the projects are successful, that both people feel comfortable sailing the boat and operating the boat, and that they're giving as much information as possible, which I think is great.
Yeah, a lot of hands-on,
right?
With the sailing days, the Outremer Academy, and then the unique feature also there for ladies only.
Yeah, there's some great ladies courses, and I also recorded a podcast with Nikki Henderson, which will be a future podcast. I'm excited to share too about that. So let's dive right in. So on what we'll do in this podcast is we'll just go day by day, because that's how we took it, and you can kind of think about the topics we cover in that context. We also posted some really quick summary videos on our Facebook page and our Instagram at Sailing Owen. They're just really little slideshows and gives you a taste and feel for what we did, if you want to check that out.
And it shows how every day we got a little bit more tired.
Yeah, every day we got a little bit more. I was toast by the end.
Because you have the training, but you have all the social stuff around it.
I know. By the time the last party was, whenever that was on, what was that, Saturday night or Sunday night? Sunday night. I was just like, oh my gosh, I just want to go to bed. I was so tired. But anyway, it was all great stuff. Met amazing people from all over the world. Also met some really cool listeners to our podcast, which was really fun.
Yeah, from
Australia.
Halfway around the world.
Yeah, it was really cool. So a couple of listeners actually were there, but so let's dive in. So celestial navigation, that was your day one.
That was my first weekend. So that was Saturday, Sunday while you were sailing.
I was sailing. Yep.
I was laboring in a classroom. No, that was good. I had been wanting to take a celestial navigation class for a long time. Curious about the the knowledge, what's behind it. I had read a book, which I highly recommend, Longitude. It's a small book, but it's really good about explaining how all these countries like England and France and we're trying to figure out, how to
help sailors like with a standardized way to.
Yeah. So at the time, the key was trying to find a way to. Well, they were going different ways, but one was trying to find a way to have an accurate clock. And so it's a great book. I highly recommend it. So finally, I was able to take a class like this. So the first day was really the focus was on noon sights. And then we were able to there were different sextants there. And so we were able to go outside and play with it. The second day, and all these classes, this class was in French, which was interesting for me because I realized how my brain worked at taking notes. Is like, even though the course was in French and I had no problem with following, luckily, but when I was typing my notes, it was like coming up as typing in English. The stuff I didn't know was coming in French. So that was quite funny. So anyway, the second day, I don't even know how in English it is, but it's the principe de la droite de hauteur, basically when the sun is not at noon, and so some other way. So my takeaway from the 2-day class was like, okay, my next step is going to be, first buy a sextant. Probably. Oh,
one more thing to buy.
Yeah, probably a plastic one. But because we were like living this nomadic life for another year plus, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to buy anything else now because otherwise we have to.
Right, no, we're not buying anything else. After the kiteboard, it's enough to lug around.
So I'll have to wait for that until we get the boat. But my focus will be just trying to practice noon sights. And the second day was definitely very interesting, but it requires quite a little bit more. It's a little bit more involved. So I think I'll be happy to do this and just during a crossing and stuff, like play with that, and then we'll see as we go if I want to dive into more.
But what you told me is you thought that it was really useful to understand how to do the noon sights. It takes practice, and I remember on 59 North when I did the passage from Key West to Bermuda, my sailing buddy Bruce, he was trying to take the noon sights, and I mean it was involved, so it does take practice, and good to know how to do it, but hopefully we won't ever be in a situation where we absolutely have to rely on it, but certainly good to have on the boat and know how to do it.
Yeah, it's more personal interest / do this for fun, hoping you never have to use it, but one day if for some reason, I mean, you have to use it, then at least you're not like, okay, where are my notes? Because
it's kind of like algebra, right?
It's not going to happen to just take a book. So I think you need to to be prepared and then just practice and just have fun with it.
Yeah. Cool. And while you were in a classroom doing that, I was in a mixed Outremer sailing class on the water, learning how to sail and maneuver the boat. It was great. Mixed meaning it was mixed men and women. They, as Stefan said, they do a ladies only class, which I also took advantage of that week. As it turned out, this class was mostly women. There was one man on board, and it was great. I mean, learning how the reefs operate, learning how to put the sails up, learning where the different lines and sheets on the boat were, because it's different than our boat, obviously, and how to operate everything and safely maneuver in the harbor in tight quarters. It's very different than our boat, which is definitely our old boat, which is definitely heavier. So when we were docking, I was over anticipating and stopping too early to avoid, kissing the dock. So I had to get used to that. I think with the light displacement boat, it's just very, very responsive to whatever you touch because it moves more quickly. So,
how is your French sailing terminology?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I learned Le Grand Voile and all that stuff. So that means
you were on a boat mostly.
Main sheet. Well, it was mixed, and our teacher spoke English, so she explained everything in English as well as French. But it was certainly kind of cool. Sometimes I got information before everybody else, and I was the first one to know what to do. And sometimes things were happening on the boat, and people were kind of scurrying around, and I had no idea what was going on. But I think all in all, the instructors were, that was Flavia on that course, that instructors were just amazing overall, and really great experience. The next 2 days after that, I took the ladies sailing class while you were
laboring in the classroom again.
In the diesel.
And while you were sailing.
Yeah, so I was sailing and you were doing diesel mechanics. But yeah, so I'll just dive into the ladies sailing. So that was taught by Nikki Henderson, who is a very well-respected, famous. She's kind of a badass sailor, and racing. She does racing too, and she's just an amazing instructor. All of the instructors are amazing, but it was really great to see how she did things, how she explained things, how the different instructors explain things differently. It was really great. And
I think that's a cool thing. Is they're all great instructors, but they have a different style.
They're all different, yeah.
And you learn from each instructor, from each style.
Yeah. And the women's course was also really unique. She, pushed us, and in a good way. It wasn't intimidating or anything like that, but definitely helped us understand. And there were people who had all levels of experience on the boat, from never having touched anything on a boat to people who, had been living on a boat previously or had sailed a lot. And it was really, really, really good to understand. I feel so empowered now, knowing how to reef that boat, because then we get on it, I don't have to ask you, oh, should we reef? I'll just do it myself. So that it kind of makes me feel, I don't know, it makes me feel more confident.
Everyone had to do it on their own. Without any input from
she'll explain it. She'll explain, okay, here's what we're going to do. Well, both of them did. Explain, here's what we're going to do, and then we'll demonstrate, and then everybody goes through and does it, and it's like, okay, you do it. And you're like, oh, and then you got to think through, okay, first I have to do this, then I have to do that, then I have to do this. And it forces us to kind of think it through. I mean, I think that the challenge with sailing as a couple, when one person has more knowledge than the other one, is the focus is on doing the maneuver and getting it done, not actually learning or teaching the maneuver. So it's like, pull this red line, and you're like, okay, and you're pulling the red line, but you don't necessarily know where it is in that little procedure in the maneuver.
And
so
next time you're in the same position.
And it's like, okay, pull the red line, and you never actually know how it all works together. So what these instructors do is they teach you, all the steps to the procedure, say like reefing. And so then when you're kind of going through it, I know exactly which steps to take in what order, and, what problems could happen, so I can manage risk through that. And also, just overall understanding, even knowing how to do it all on my own, which is great. On these boats, it's a little more technical than our boat before, but very intuitive and easy to get around the boat. So that was really good. So how was your diesel class?
Diesel was good. I had taken a diesel class before. So plus, the past 2 years, obviously you had to kind of keep an eye on our...
Yeah, it was more like babysitting the engines, not so much fixing anything.
So I think, my takeaway from those classes is, the first... I don't remember the length of the warranty for Volvo engines, but the first couple of years during the warranty, you're basically not allowed to touch the engine, otherwise you could waive the warranty. So what you're doing is regular checks on all the fluids and stuff like this. So I think so the class is helpful, I think, in a way where you get hands-on, you get to understand all the fundamentals, how that works, and but I think it's not because you're going to have to use it in the first couple of years. It's more
when you buy a new boat.
When you buy a new boat, yeah. But it's more you're going to have some technicians that are going to come to do the service, or if you were to have a problem, at least you have a good understanding, and you have the vocabulary ask questions and stuff like this. And I think if you buy a brand new boat, that's
and sometimes
what's important.
Figuring out what the problem is the thing that takes the time too. So being able to do diagnostics before you involve a technician also could save money, right?
And also then you can go onto Facebook groups and stuff like this and say, here's what I've done, and and is what I observe. And so at least you need that kind of the skill set to understand the fundamentals. But obviously, tomorrow you're not going to have to do some heavy mechanical things. So that's kind of the big takeaway of getting comfortable around an engine. Yeah. And so that's that.
Okay. And then on the Wednesday, we took a couple classes, and we'll kind of breeze through this day quickly. We took a knots class, like for knots and doing fixes on lines and things like that. And then a summary of the electronics piece. It was called knots.
It was rope work.
Running,
rigging, and modern textiles.
Not
knots. I don't think we've done any knots. It's more basically we had to kind of an explanation about the different types of ropes that are available today, and plus and minuses of each. We've done some splicing with some Dyneema lines, which I had played with in the past 2 years. And so that was kind of the big takeaway of this class, to try to understand the pros and cons of each, different modern fibers.
I think this class, for me, there's a lot on YouTube that you kind of get a lot out of. And, if you have time at home to practice doing some splices and things, I think that's fine. I don't know that you need a class on it. Same probably.
It's half day. It's an introduction.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
I think, but the key thing is, train at home, and also save some YouTube videos that are good, that you feel that good to use. So when you need it later, and you need to do whatever splice, then you don't spend like half a day looking for those videos on your little SIM card, and you have those saved in advance. So but it's like everything. It was an introduction. Now it's you want to practice, and
So then the second half of the day, and I'll breeze through this because you took kind of a whole day kind of diving into details on it, but was just the overall electronics systems on the boats. I think I mentioned before, the Outremer's come with B&G. I mean, you can get anything, but kind of the ones that they recommend are B&G, which is a new system for us. So we met with Pochon, and they kind of gave a summary of everything, all of the potential options and pros and cons of the systems and things like that. So it was pretty high level summary. Yeah,
again, half a day, but it was a good overview of the different communication equipment, safety equipment, and then and what are all the options that are being offered. So now, we'll have a meeting with Pochon directly when we come back to La Grande Motte at the end of June, and then we'll start diving into what options we're going to select. But I think that was very useful to have that and have that presentation given to us. So it'll make the meeting much more kind of valuable.
And just a summary, Pochon is the electronics dealer in Europe that we have spent the most time with. I think they have offices all over France. So, and lots of discussion in that group about Starlink and all of that, which is also, I think, not ready, but certainly interesting to see it develop further in the future. Mm-hmm. All right. So then the next day I took electrical, which is so I could get an understanding of power and the electrical system in the boat and understand how all that works. And, what I learned from it is the electrical seems really daunting and intimidating, but it's actually a pretty simple system, but a lot could go wrong and create big problems. So just understanding a little bit about electricity on a boat and how it all kind of ties together and what goes where and what lines to check for and what problems to kind of see and diagnose. I thought that was really useful. Same as diesel. I don't think either of us would want to fix any electrical problem on our boat ourselves.
Well, fix maybe if there was basic stuff, but we're not going to set up any new systems or
install something ourselves, right? But it was interesting is to just be able to understand how to diagnose problems. So that was really good. And then you spent the whole day half a day, with Pochon.
So there was a follow-up to the electronics class we had the day before. This one was electronics configuration. So what was nice is you go on a boat, an Outremer boat, and the first part was looking at the system on the boat where things, the NMEA bus runs on the boat, and so you practically see where it's being installed, and then the second part was more about the different parameters that you can configure. Quite hands-on, very useful to get a good understanding.
And it's cool because the pictures you showed me, they pulled the panels off and you can really see everything.
Yeah. So and the great thing is, you get those technicians and those experts, and you can ask questions.
Right.
And so it's...
Because these systems can be a little bit of a black box. Once they're all installed and everybody walks away, you're like, where is everything?
Yeah, and just to feel comfortable again, if you have there are many pieces of equipment that are plugged into this main bus, and then if something doesn't start or whatever, that you can at least, again, do the first step of troubleshooting and, on your own. But if you've never looked at it before, then you're like, oh, where do I start?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next day was really fun. It was safety at sea. And we spent the morning doing, the theory in the class and what could go wrong and potential problems, just an overall summary of risk management and how to think about risk on the boat. Probably nothing completely out of what you would imagine were things to look out for, fire safety, things like this. But the second half of the day was super fun because we put on these, what are they called? Immersion suits? Survival immersion suits, which we all looked like Teletubbies. I posted some pictures online. It's so funny. But anyway, we did that, and we inflated a life raft. I was going to say exploded a life raft. But
pretty much.
It was like an explosion. So we threw it in the water, it filled up with air, and then we practiced getting in and out of it and what it was like to have 6 people in it with the tent over the top. And I could definitely see how someone would get seasick. And I could definitely also see that was flat water in the harbor.
Yeah.
So and no stress. Yeah. And the instructor kind of got on top and jumped up and down to try to simulate waves. And we had to learn how to tip it over, if it kind of flips over, what happens. And that was definitely something. I'm glad we did that, to know how to do it. Again, it's one of those things that you hope you never have to do. But
I had attended classes like these that were required for the races I did to Hawaii, but it's just one thing when you look at it versus here, you're actually doing it. So now it's like, okay, I don't know if we will buy survival suits because we're going to be in warm latitudes.
Well, and we have wetsuits, but I can see how it'd be stressful to pull a wetsuit on if you're like...
Yeah, but just to know how to put one, how it feels when you jump in the water, how to remove the air, to how to flip it back up, the life raft, to get in, and all these little things that you've done at least once and you have now a reference. And so if it happens, you're like, okay, let's remember, we've done it once. Or how to stay, they teach you how, if you're outside your life raft and you're in the survival suits, and different techniques on how to basically stay together
and float together.
And then how to move together. And also how to make a position with whatever crew people on the water, and to try to be seen better by an helicopter. So all these little tips that we practiced, that was super fun and super valuable.
Yeah, really
now
valuable.
It takes the
mystery out of it. Yeah,
you've
for
done
sure.
it once.
And then we practiced hauling someone, a man overboard, hauling him up. And that was, I think, also really good to do. That's something you always say, oh, let's practice doing that, and then you never do it. At the dock, like the two of us, we talked about doing that last season, but we never did. And so actually doing it, I think, is really good. It's like, okay, I could see how I could get you back on the boat.
The problem is because when it happens, the sea state is probably going to be bad. So you cannot, and the freeboard on those boats is really high. And getting on the boat from the stern, from the back, when the boat is like going up and down, that's like
you
dangerous.
could really bash your brains out.
You basically have to do it midship, and then so that will be the proper technique that we practice to get somebody back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely would not want to do that, but it's good to know how to do it for sure.
Yeah. You're not freestyling. You can all, and it's great that we both attended the same training, because now that's the reference for both of us.
Right. So if you were incapacitated, I would know how to do it.
Yeah. And we're not, like, we both know what to expect.
Right.
Whoever is in the water, if it were to happen, like, we know, we've seen it both. And so it's great.
Right. And then I was able to do the racing days for 2 days, and that was super fun for me, because I'd never. I think we were in the rally last year, I think.
So last year was called Outremer's Cup. Yeah, we did one day. One day where it was.
That was kind of like our trial sail at the same time. I think you were helping out. I was just kind of trying to stay out of the way, because I've never been in a race before. So everything was happening really quickly. But this time I actually knew what I was doing and was part of the racing crew. It's for 2 days. And again, I was lucky to be on the boat where Nikki was the skipper, and she was definitely in race mode. It was really, really, really fun. And it was definitely... Also, the boats get really close together, and, it's good to see. I don't really want that to be happening, as we're cruising. The boats getting that, they were just feet apart at the starting line, which is a little sketchy. But the skippers all knew what they were doing, so, nothing happened. But I was like, wow, this is intense. And doing all the different points of sail, doing them quickly, understanding how the sail trim happens quickly, that was a completely different experience than taking the sailing classes. I felt like I probably learned more on the racing days, because you do the maneuvers so much more. Mm-hmm. Maybe not learned more. Maybe the better way to describe it is I learned how to do it on the sailing days, and then you practice with the racing days, because you're doing them over and over again and committing it to muscle memory, what's going to happen.
Yourself in an environment where you have to perform.
Right.
So it's one thing you say, okay, I know how to do this maneuver, versus now I'm going to put myself out of my comfort zone and trying to do it quickly and well.
It's kind of a high pressure situation, especially when you have like this amazing skipper at the helm, and she knows what she's doing, and she's, competitive. So we all wanted to compete the best we could with the boat we had and the crew we had. So and the sails we had. So it was really, really great experience, and I would definitely recommend. If you live somewhere where you have access to the water for fun, if you can get on some race boats, in your area. If we were in San Francisco, I think I would want to do that more.
Yeah, they have in the U.S. probably everywhere. Mm-hmm. They have what they call this the Friday night races,
regattas,
or maybe
whatever.
Some other days, but it's the beer can races. So it's racing, but informal. And skippers and owners always accept like some crew to get on last minute. You might not do something on the boat, but just visualize.
Observing what's going on.
And then most likely they'll sail a downwind sail. They'll set up a downwind sail, a spinnaker, and then just observing that also is very valuable. Takes the mystery also. And
just watching everything be done multiple times. Mm-hmm. I think when I first got on our Fountain Peugeot, having never really been in a race and having not that much experience putting up different sails, you do them one at a time. You do sail changes not that often when you're cruising, especially when we were having to motor a lot. And just watching how quickly these sails can come up and down, just to do the different points of sail in a race. It just takes the mystery out of, we're putting up the spinnaker. Oh no, it's this big thing. It's really not a big thing. You just have to know how to do it properly.
It builds your confidence.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you've had racing experience, but this was my first, and I felt like it was just, I don't know, I kind of got into it.
When you came back?
I came back.
How was your day? And you said?
Oh, yeah. So I said it was an expensive day, and then immediately you thought I broke something.
I was like, ouch.
And what I meant was, oh, no, now, we're going to want to, I don't know, do more things
you
on the
got
boat.
hooked onto the performance side of it.
It may be like different sails. I don't know. So we still haven't figured out our sail plan. So we're working through that. Although I think we're sort of leaning to the Genoa setup, which we'll talk about more in a future episode. And then you did weather, which is a first in a 4-part. It was level 1 of the first set of classes. Of 4 days, right?
Yeah, so level 1 is 1 weekend, and then in a couple of weeks that will be level 2, so that will be another weekend. So it's total of 4-day class about weather, which I was excited about. Same thing, I've learned about weather obviously along the way, but to take like a 4-day class that goes into like really details, I was like super excited about that. So it was definitely, the class was really, really good. And what you do as you start cruising is, you have those apps and with like Windy, they're very visual, download some grip files in the background and you start relying solely on these. And one of the problems, for example, is when you're at sea, you're relying on because you have limited data bandwidth with your Iridium Go, so you're going to look at the small kind of a area around you, but you don't see the bigger systems and the bigger picture. And so it's easy to just solely rely on that, but that's kind of like the one big takeaway of this classroom is yes, it's important information, but you need to also rely on weather maps and weather files that are available and you can download, and so you really understand the bigger picture and combine, what use visual tools with grip files, with weather maps, with also with the observations you have with clouds and sea state and and wind directions and atmospheric pressure and all these things, put it together and really become your little weather man. And so that's kind of the big takeaway and the intent of the class, to be as self-sufficient as possible.
Yeah, I would like to be as self-sufficient as possible when it comes to weather, for sure, because that's the big outlier, right? Like that's the big unknown, and it has obviously the most effect on your safety. And the thing is I think when we do the Atlantic crossing, I would still like to have additional support, which you can buy these services for, which is helpful. But definitely understanding, how to use weather and which apps to use, right? Because even in the Med, you go to different countries and there's different sources that is more accurate than other sources for the local weather. And having kind of that context and seeing it in action, super helpful.
Yeah, you had some tips about, those different forecast models that you see on those different apps. And then, you kind of see it about cruisers, say, oh, this one is more accurate. And you start using one. And then you look at it, you'll be, oh, this one is not accurate. Look at this. But then you start to dive, like he gave us some good tips. It's just if you're near the coast, and if you look at like the forecast model, for example, GFS, this is kind of a low resolution. So it's great when you're in the ocean. That's sufficient. But now when you're near the coast of near Gibraltar, for example, it might give you like a wind direction that is totally different from something with a high resolution. And so you want to make sure you pick the right forecast model, depending on where you are in the ocean or close to the coast.
Because I never knew the difference of any of those really. Like, sort of, I would be like, oh, this one seems to be more accurate.
Yeah, and then you fall into these, like, okay, it's more accurate. That's one I'm going to use all the time. But basically, they're all fairly accurate. You just have to know which one to use. And then depending of where you are. Or also some other pointers that he gave us about those grid files is it's basically an average of the established true wind. And what he demonstrated, it's basically underestimated by 20%. So it's important to just keep in mind that the weather forecast on these script files, it's a forecast. It's a forecast, and it might be important to add another 20% to what the wind is suggesting here. And so there was a lot of like useful tips and kind of reframe how you're supposed to do your own weather on your own boat, and so basically do a lot of preparation and be what would be the word, like I'm trying to find the right word, but like when you repeat the same task over and over.
Repetition.
And so to never cut a corner, get into a model that you follow. And then just rigorously do it every time. And
a procedure for like checking weather.
Exactly.
Right.
And I totally agree. Like, I mean, I think as you go through this class, you understand the benefit of having an on-land, like kind of weather support. Router, because, you'll download those files, a couple times a day, but somebody can be monitoring, the big picture. They can have high bandwidth on land, and they can really look at many sources that you cannot do on the water. So you want that kind of expertise and that knowledge to complement, with your own weather routing. And so again, important to speak the same language, and also you're the one seeing things that are happening on the water, so you can give back observations and stuff like this. So I think it's totally complementary.
Yeah. So that kind of summed up the week. We're going back, and I'm going to spend 2 more days.
You skip all the social.
I'm going to go back to the social in just a minute. So you're going to do the weather level 2, and I'm going to do 2 more days of sailing with Flavia on a ladies only boat.
And I'm going to do the electricity. So,
you are?
Because instead of taking the 1 day, I'm taking a 2-day electricity class.
Yeah. And I'll take another weather class at a different, and I took one in Annapolis too, but I don't know where I kept all my notes. So anyway, so the last day before we left to come to Lisbon it was great. We had a big kind of soiree, a party. It was a lot of fun. But every night we were able to meet people and have dinner with people and chat with people, and, who were also getting their boats, make connections. And, these owner groups are just so important. Outremer has one. Other boat companies kind of, if they don't have them, they're informally on Facebook, where you could, get into an owners group or an online community. It's the most useful, I think, part is making those connections, and what we love about the sailing community.
Yeah, the great thing is we met people here, but everybody was basically getting a boat within the next year was there. And so we met them here.
We're going to see them again.
Probably when some people are going to get their boats delivered, like maybe this summer. So we'll see them again while we're in like on Mott or Montpellier. Outremer week, this because there are 2 a year, we'll probably see a lot of the same faces. So basically, while we're on land waiting for the boat to come out, you're establishing friendships and then
it's fun. Yeah. It's really fun. Yeah, we have friends.
Yeah, we have a social life.
It's amazing.
Which was not so much the case when we were working.
Yeah, when we were working. Well, I mean, we did. It was just they were all work friends and, or friends of your kid, like parents of your kids doing the sporting activities. So it's kind of nice to to build up the friendships in the sailing community. And also, I mean, we still have friends from the Fountain Peugeot owners group too that we keep in touch with. So that's also really great. So yeah, the social part definitely is a lot of fun. And although we were I guess we were at the party and we went in to use the bathroom and they were like, sorry, you can't use the bathroom because all of the plumbing got... What happened? Like the sewer line broke or something? Sewer line broke in the yacht club or in the whole dock, was it? Because none of the marina had toilets.
Yeah, that was a major sewer pipe, and so they had to fix that. So
it was so bizarre because we were walking to the party, and I was like, wow, someone dumped their Blackwater tanks. That's really awful right there in the harbor. And it turned out it was actually the harbor that accidentally let go of the sewer. So there was like crap all over the place. It was really nasty. Yeah. But anyway, it got figured out. So that was a big week to cover. I know we went through a lot of stuff quickly, but just wanted to give you a summary of everything we've learned and all the classes we took. If you have any other detailed questions about any specific class or what you think you want to get out of a class, there's classes offered obviously all over the place. During the Annapolis Boat Show, they do a bunch of classes too. I think what we really appreciated for this was the classes were specific to Outremer. So all of the electronics, the electrical, the diesel, it was all very specific to that boat. And then the sailing courses are obviously all on Outremer. So it's much more specific than getting on or sitting in a class about something that is just boats in general. So
you
definitely
can ask questions about this and that for Outremer.
Yeah, definitely great. So I think that's all for this week. Again, drop us a line at sailingowen@gmail.com if you have any questions, and we will talk with you guys soon. Fair winds for now.
Bonsoir.
Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, like, or share with another Covert Castaway. Fair winds for now.